Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Mordechai. We had this Maseches Shabbos, John Shetrit. I showed this picture. Here's a guy working out, and here he is doing his siyum. In fact, it's pointed out to me. If you look, I chopped it off when I did the picture. If you look at this picture, he's working out, but he has the learning going on right over here. So that's what this picture is all about.
Is that also a Trump t-shirt?
Who? We have here Josh Whistler. He says, Hashgacha Pratis. He wanted to make a siyum. He was in Miami, but there was a holiday party, if you know what I mean. He says it went on too late. He missed the siyum. And then he got a message from Michael Bemela. And he says, come on over. He's throwing some sort of siyum. And he went over there. I don't think they know each other. They didn't know each other before this. And Memela, he was in Miami. He was able to do a siyum together. So Yishur Koyach. We have here another picture. Another very interesting story. Ephraim Hod. Something very interesting happened recently. I figured I would share with you. I was in a bagel shop a few weeks ago and was approached by an alman who lost his wife a little less than a year ago. At the time, he said he wanted to make his first siyum ever on Gemara in honor of his wife's yard, and asked me to help him. Now, I'm someone who mamish, disliked Gemara growing up, but fell in love with it after starting Yeshir. He said he heard Talmud was a short Masechta and wanted to complete it. I recommend the Tainus. Short and easy. I hesitated and said I'll get back to him. I thought about it during the day and figured if Eli invests his time to give over his share to us, then there's definitely a way for us to do the same. I agreed to do it, and it was an incredible experience. We completed it in time for the yard side, and emotion was outstanding. Thank you for giving us the tools to help others. Attach our pics from learning the siyum. Ephraim Hod. Here he is, learning Talmud with an alman. Talmud. No. The guy wanted Talmud. That's what he's saying. He went out of his comfort zone, learned it, and here it is. Here's the Beis Hamikdash in the picture. And I'm only going to read one email. There are many, but this one is, it reminded me, this is from, I don't even know his name. Okay, Shkoyach, for not saying. It says this week's parasha in Perik Beis, Pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayar b'sivloisam Rashi nosan eina v'liboy liyos meitzer aleim. So I mentioned this Rashi a number of times. I love this Rashi. I spoke about it. One of our big Sudas Seidah, that one of the main ingredients of our MDY family. Thanks for being the catalyst. Bezer Hashem Yisbarach, Baruch v'atzlacha, halavai vayter ben el. In other words, Rashi is saying that Moshe Rabbeinu looked out the window and it doesn't say Vayar. He just saw. Rashi says, this is for your Dvar Torah, Rabbi. You can put this in your thing. It doesn't just say he saw. It says he saw Vinosan Liboy. In other words, when we said we have to daven for one of the guys that was here for the Siyum, he was here for Shir, he does all our graphics. Shalom Baruch Yehuda ben Malka Freda. There's one thing, Oy Nebuch, he's on a respirator. Okay, Vaiter, says the Gemara. Or you could picture him lying in the hospital and his wife crying over him and his little children, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 6-year-old, all these little kids. When's daddy going to come home? When's Tati coming home? It's Liboy, like literally feel it. All right. What's your name again? Binyamin? Ben Rachmiel from Yerushalayim. Binyamin tells me he made his very, very first siyum on Maseches Rosh Hashana, the night of his wedding. Correct? Gevaldik, Rabbi Binyamin, all the way a guest from Yerushalayim. Yishur Koyach for coming. The Parnas HaChodesh for the Koilel is Chayim. Lilu Nishmas Yeshua Aryeh Leyb HaKohen Ben Yonasan Chayim. Maseches Megillah is by the Davis and Kessler families in zechus for Refuah shleima for Miriam Esther Bas Devora. Maseches Megillah, sponsored by Shmuly after 245. Eli Stefansky, Mordechki, shleima פינחס טוביה, ben Avraham Moshe Peretz, neshoma ben aliyah. Parnas HaChodesh in honor of RL97 Akiva Tepper for introducing me to Rebbe's Daf. Parnas HaChodesh, Daniel and Cohen. Zechus for shleima for Gabriel ben Yomin ben Cyril Fruma. Amen. And for Refuah shleima, yes. There is encouraging news about Yiddi. Leibovitz, Shalom Baruch Yehuda ben Malka Freda. They hope to, his numbers are getting better, Baruch Hashem, but he still needs Rachmei Shemayim Merubim. Yesterday was the hardest daf in Maseches Megillah, and I think it was very geschmack. We learned the Yisodis, and we are in the middle of the sugya of Mitzayra. So just to be clear, it felt great. I went after share. I went to a young guy. I went to a few people later on during the day. I said, "No, tell me the halachas of zav." And they were zav. 1 riyah is like a balkari, 2 riyahs, 3 riyahs, no carbon, yes carbon. But to get that and to go with it for the rest of Shas. Now the Mishnah talks about a mitzayra. Mitzayra. There's 2 types of mitzayra: mitzayra musgar and a mitzayra muchlat. Muchlat is bechlet. It's a done deal. Musgar is he's just confined. So what's the difference? If there's a tsaras on the body, on the skin, it's a certain size, only a kohen can take a look at it. He doesn't even have to be a Talmud Chacham, we said, but he's a kohen. He takes a look at it. If he's not sure, he doesn't see any simanim in it, he tells the guy, you are locked up for a week. Come back to me in a week. Comes back in a week, he looks at it again. If nothing happened, nothing changed, go back for a week. So this is like, he doesn't know really what's going on. So he's a musgar. But if he's a muchlat, if there's 2 white hairs, if it grew, it has some live flesh in the middle, then he's a muchlat. Muchlat means he's an absolute mitzayra. And that the Mishnah said, what's the difference between the two? The difference is priya and prima. Priya, either uncovering the hair, letting the hair grow, and prima, cutting like an oval, you rip the clothing. So when you're a muchlat, you have to do those 2 things. When you're not a muchlat, you don't do those 2 things. So we brought a raya yesterday, a reason, and the Gemara shlugged it up. Now we're holding Ella Omarava. It's, I think, like 6 lines down from where the Gemara starts. In other words, right in the center of the Amud. Ella Omarava. Mehacha. I have another pshat. Batsarua asher boy hanega. So let's just look at the pasuk for a second. Hatsarua asher boy hanega. I see the zoom. That's beautiful, but it doesn't do me any good, Gary. Okay, I could go like this also if you want. Batsarua asher boy hanega begod of you frumim v'roisha yev perua. So over here you see prima and priya. Asher boy hanega. Asher boy. The nega is in him, in his body. That's what we're learning from. This is a mitzayra that is very dependent on the tzaras. The only way he could go home and get rid of everything is when the tzaras is healed. It's begufay. The other type of mitzayra, called a musgar, he's not a real true mitzayra. He's dependent on days. Meaning, Ela b'yamim. So what happens here? Here, this is another parak. This is in parak Yud Gimel. The next parak says, when it's completely healed, minatzarua, then he can go home. That's a mitzayra muchlat, an absolute mitzayra. He needs it to heal. But a mitzayra that's not muchlat, he's a musgar, the kind doesn't know really what's going on. He doesn't see any changes. He doesn't see any simanim. So he has to stay there for 7 days. If it doesn't help the 7 days, he stays for another 7 days. So what are we waiting for? Days. Once the days are over, he could go home. Even though it's the same size, even though nothing changed with the tzaras, because 2 hairs didn't grow, he goes home. But the muchlat, absolute mitzayra, he has to heal. So, if you remember yesterday, we'll just show it again. Why not? Use a old chart. A mitzayra is really bad. If you're Tomei Mace or a Sheretz, you have to go out of this machna right over here. If you're a Zav and a Balkari, you have to go out of the blue. Between the blue and the green, you could still stay within Yerushalayim. If you're mitzayra, get out. Completely. Beyond this green line. Mitzayra is the worst. So you're telling me, it says, The pasuk about Shiluach says, Asher nega boy. It's about being in him, not days, but it has to heal. So maybe, perhaps, maybe a Mitzayra Musgar, which is dependent on days and not on the actual tzaras, doesn't have to leave the walled city of Yerushalayim. Maybe, there's such a nafkamina. That can't be. Why? Because then that nafkamina should be in our Mishnah, and it's not. The only difference between the two Mitzrayim is two things: Priya and Prima, ripping the clothing and the hair. But it doesn't say anything about a difference between leaving Yerushalayim and not. So there's no difference. Yesterday we had this amazing thing in Rashi, that when a Mitzrayim goes into the house, everything becomes tameh. Now, if he became tar, and he goes into the house, and then later on, 2 days later, 2 white hairs grow, so everything in the house remains tar, because at the time that he went into the house, he was tar, just the 2 hairs appeared 2 days later. But that's only on Bia going into the house. But touching something, let's say the Mitzrayim touched the Kli, and 26 years later, 2 hairs grow out, 2 white hairs, because he got old. So 2 white hairs, not because he got old, because white hairs are tameh. But I'm saying, even if you're going to attribute it to him being old and he has white hairs, grow out of the tzaras, all of a sudden that Kli from 26 years ago becomes tameh, unbelievable chiddush in Rashi. Yeah, we did all the sponsors. Seems like from the Mishnah that when it comes to everything else, the musgar and the mukhlat are equal. What is a musgar? Not absolute. What's a mukhlat? Absolute. Remember that for the rest of your life. Amalei. Yemei, kol yemei, the rabbis, Mitzayra, musgar, you're right, l'shiluach. It shouldn't be like that. We should say that there is a difference between a musgar and a mukhlat, but because there's a special pasuk, kol yemei, so we add that also. Now the Bach takes out these words over here.
Even though the musgar is more chomer, he gets out faster because we know what he is. The other guy's got.
Yeah. He's not even a mitzayir really. It comes out that he's not a full-fledged. Yeah. The Bach takes out the next 9 words. And he goes like this. He explains that the Gemara is just going back to the Mishnah. Ein bein tahar mitoy chezgel tahar mitoy chechle. Elo tiglachas v'tziparim. When the Mitzayra, who's a musgar, and a Mitzayra, who's a mukhlat, when they come out, one comes out because he did his 14 days, the other one comes out because his negad disappeared. What is the difference between the two? Elo tiglachas v'tziparim. The one that's an absolute Mitzayra, he has to go through an entire process. It's a very lengthy process, going to the mikveh twice, shaving off all his body hair, all of it, bringing karbanos, the whole thing. The Mishnah just says it in 2 words, tiglachas v'tzipar. My taima, and he sticks in the word, my taima. What is the reason? Me, again, that whole pasuk that talks about the whole process is only me shetzaratet luya b'refuos, which it has to heal and go away. But the musgar, the not such a just a confined one, but not the mukhlat, he doesn't have to go through the whole process. Okay, that's it. Now we're back to Megillah. Well, not really, but not these hard sugyas. It wasn't that hard, by the way. We have Maseches that every daf is going to be like that. But that's in years from now. La'atzlacha, this is the official mission of La'atzlacha Ruchni, Shimshon David, Lipa ben Yehuda's Beila, and Yosef Yehuda ben Yehuda's Beila. Says the Mishnah, and we're going with the same theme. There's no difference between this and that, only this. Ein bein svarim letfilin u'mezuzos. What is the difference between Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, and Tefillin mezuzos? Elo sha'asvarim nichtavim b'chaloshen. Seems like from the Mishnah, you could write a Sefer Torah in English, you could write Navi, those who read the Navi from parchment, you could write it in any language, in French, in English. Utfilin u'mezuzos einon nichtavos elo ashuris. But when it comes to a mezuzah and tefillin, you must write it in Ashuris, which is Lashon HaKodesh. Lashon HaKodesh / Ashuris is a type of ksav. Now we're referring to the language of Ashuris, the language of Lashon HaKodesh. We're going to see in the Gemara, and it turns out at the end of the sugya, that's actually a pasuk. The pasuk says you could write Sefer Torah in Greek. That's it. The only language in the world, Greek. It's a beautiful language. It's beautiful. That's the end of the sugya. But only in Greek. Gemara is going to tell us a beautiful story. I don't know, it's so beautiful. It's maybe a little sad, actually. But a long story about what happened and how we got into Greek. But at the end of the day, there's a pasuk. Says the Gemara, from begidin, but to use sinews. Gid. Here I have gidin. I went yesterday to a cipher, and he gave me a roll of gidim. Here, the stuff. Now, it comes out from Rashi. Let me show you something very, very interesting. Seriously. I want to know, what do you think? Is this kosher? I did this yesterday. He gave me this mezuzah. I took a scissors and I cut it in half. I'm serious. I cut this in half and then I sewed it with sinews. I took his gid and I attached it with the sinew. Is this kosher or not? Rabbi Isa, kosher? Kosher or not? Oh, let's say it was kosher before. Kosher or not? So Rashi says this is kosher, and it's muchach from the sugya, like Rashi's right, although a lot of Rishonim argue, because the Gemara says, "Halatah from begidin, uletamis yadayim zevizeh shavim." For tefillin and mezuzah, you must use gidin. Now, where in the world are you using a sinew in a mezuzah? The only time you'd use, says Rashi, is if it's cut in half. Cut in half, you have to use sinews. Everybody agrees you have to use a gid. You can't use flax for a Sefer Torah. The way you put the ureas together in a Sefer Torah is with the gid. You ever notice in your tefillin, there's a little piece sticking out. Here is because that's how they tie the tefillin with. Even the actual parshias inside, if you ever open up a tefillin, there's a little, it's wrapped in a gid. You have to use a gid. How do we know this? Halacha l'Moshe Sinai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai. Switch microphones. And it's on? Should I take off the other one? You want me to leave it? Just add. He said switch. You see, you got to be medaik in the Lashonis. Baruch Hashem. Now Zoom can hear me. Beautiful. Okay. I feel more chashav. 3 microphones. We're getting more and more. Yeah. So, you can't use old tricks. You got to get the new tricks. Oh, the microphones. I saw that one, Yosef. I saw it. Fine. Now, as we learned, when you touch, even a Megillah, we all touch the Megillah, we touch. That's because it's l'tzairach, whatever, and we're very makbid not to touch the Sefer Torah. If a guy does hagibin, it starts falling apart, people run with their talis. You're allowed to touch it if it's mama, you see the Sefer Torah is going to get ruined, but we don't touch it because it creates tumah. Chachamim were geyser at that time, the 18 things. The geyser tumah, they don't want people touching the Sefer Torah. So they said, if you do, you become tamei. Okay. It says in the Mishnah that you write Sefer Torah, Nevi'im Ksuvim in any language. V'riminu, mikra shiksavai targum, v'targum shiksavai mikra. If you take a pasuk, and instead of writing the pasuk, you put what Unkelus writes, or let's say the pasuk says Aramaic. Now, where does the pasuk say Aramaic? So, by Lavan, very good. What's the words? Very good. So, here's the pasuk. Yigar Sa'adusa. Yigar means a mountain that's a witness. Sa'adusa is witnesses. And that's what Lavan called it. He said it in Aramaic. And Yaakov called it Gal Eid in Hebrew. The same thing, but in Hebrew. In Lashon Kodesh, which is Gal, a mountain, Eid, witness. So if you flipped it out, you said instead of Yigar Sadusa, you stuck in this word, you put Galeid instead of, what does it say? Viksav Ivri. And if you use that, you can ask Rabbi Schoenberg the whole thing, what's going on, but there's something called Ksav Ivri. It looks something like this, maybe. Yeah, Rabbi Schoenberg, am I okay so far? Ksav Ivri. Rabbi Schoenberg wrote extensively about this and all this kind of stuff, but this is, if you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, you probably see some of this stuff like this and older things. And Shaila, did they write with it? Did they not use it? was Ashurus from the beginning, they might have used Sefer Torahs like this, might have written Sefer Torahs like this.
Yeah, before Ezra.
Before Ezra. Not everybody holds like that, though. What?
Not in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Not in Dead Sea Scrolls at all? The Shem Hashem in the Dead Sea Scrolls, by the way, there's a person I'm very, very close to. I don't want to say his name here because I don't know, maybe the authorities will come after him. He was in YU, and they brought some of these Dead Sea Scrolls to YU, and they gave him, he was a star student, so they gave him one of them to do some research on, and he lost it. What is that worth? Like $30 million each one? He lost $30 million. Anyway. No. The real thing, before anybody cared about it. It was in the 70s, back in the 60s, 70s. He didn't have the real thing, says Rabbi Schoenberg. Okay. Now he's going to call me up. Why? Okay. The only time is that it's Kedusha. Here it says Mefurish. You can't write in other languages. You can't flip it out. You can't use this. You can't even use Ksav Ivri. It's Lashon Kodesh. But it's a different dialect. It's a different way of writing. You can't do it. Not dialect, but it's a different font. Very good font. Says Rava, top of Amud Aleph. Kan begufon shalanu. The boys' side, I have it here. Read this. If you write in English, no, I don't want to see that. Gary, I need to see this, please. Thank you. But use Hebrew letters is good. Yeah. That's what happened there. He's writing in English. He wrote a whole Sefer Torah, but he used Hebrew letters. That's okay. But if he wrote in English, A, B, C, that's no good. If you use Ksav Ashurus, a whole cipher, in a completely different language, excellent. What do you say? So we have a problem. We have a steer and a contradiction, and you have to go through the steer and contradiction. We're going to have a number of answers here. On the one hand, it says in the Mishnah, you could switch it out. You could write a Sefer Torah in any language. On the other hand, it says you can't. So the Gemara says, no. Our Mishnah is talking about that you're writing it in Hebrew, in Lashon Kodesh, the way we know it. You look at the Sefer Torah, you won't see any difference. When we start reading the words, it's gibberish, it's in English. What? You're saying that the Brisa is talking about that he wrote it in English font? So then why does it say that you took the Gar Sadusa and you flipped it into Galed? You wrote it in English. Even if you wrote this in pure English, it's possible. According to the Brisa, not the Mishnah, the Brisa, you must write it with Hebrew font, Ashurus, and with ink. So one teretz, another teretz. Rabbanan say in the Mishnah that you can write it in any language and in any font. In Reb Shimon Gamliel, in the Mishnah says that Svarim all the way at the end, you have to only Greek. Remember, in the Mishnah it says only Greek. Okay. So any other language is possible. The Brisa goes according to Reb Shimon Gamliel. Any language is possible. It's not talking Reb Shimon Gamliel like Yavanis. What do you mean? But it's not. Everything is possible. One language, not Lashon Kodesh, is okay. Says the Gemara, how you doing, Zevi? I see Zevi on your phone. Zevi, we love you, but you should try to...
Zoom is bad.
They don't have YouTube in yeshiva. I know. We got to get them the screen. Okay. Fine. We're not going to say what yeshiva he's in. Shema, he'll end up in a no yeshiva. Eloi Kasha. Kan bisvarim. Sefer Torah, the Mishnah says, is okay to write in English. Kan b'tfilin. But a tefillin, no, it has to be only in Lashon Kodesh. The Brisa is talking about tefillin, that can't be in any language. You need Lashon Kodesh, you need Ashurus, everything. Huh? It's another language, it's German. Tefillin umezuzis my taima, mishum nechsiv behu v'hayu. Did I just say that? Chasidim are not going to like it. It's a dialect of basically German and other, and it's a different language. Tefillin umezuzis my taima There's a word in the pasuk. V'hayu chaval. I want to blow it up. Gary, you got to do me a favor. You're not going to believe this. Boys, I thought this is Ashgacha Prata Shein Kamayu. Look at this mezuzah over here. I got this last night. Without knowing anything about the sugya, I went to the cipher on the leyv. He gave me this. You see where my finger is right over here? You got to zoom in. You got to zoom in. You got to see this. I wanted to blow it up and I forgot. Hold on. This for the Hashgacha Prata story is worth waiting 10 seconds. Yeah. He's looking inside my heart. No, this is the cheaper one. We do. The $10,000 camera does it. Here we go. Wow. If you look right over here, I don't want to move it. Look what you see where my finger is right over here. What word is missing? We're right with my finger. Look at the word before and look at the word after. Vahayu is missing from this mezuzah. If you look all the way in the bottom, it says Vahayu chaser. All the way in pencil. You see, Vahayu chaser. I couldn't believe it. This word that we're talking about is out of this mezuzah. That's why I was able to cut it and be mevazit a little bit. Although it has Shem Hashem, this is a completely possible mezuzah. Right over here, it's supposed to say Vahayu hadvarim ha'ela. That word. Anyways, I thought it was interesting. I don't know what the siman is, but the Gemara says in Tefillin the word Vahayu, which tells us it has to be exactly as is. And if the word Vahayu is missing, then it doesn't have to. This mezuzah can be any way you want. Okay? No, it's not Ashgacha. Interesting Ashgacha. It's like Hashem saying, hey, my targum shiksave mikra ikka. So now the Gemara asks, Yigarso Dusa, we all know. But if you're talking about tefillin and mezuzah, what Aramaic word is there in tefillin and mezuzah? My targum shiksave mikra ikka. Bishleima Torah ikka Yigarso Dusa. Elahacha, my targum ikka. So we cannot say that the Bryce is talking about tefillin. You want to be doichek and say the Bryce is talking about tefillin, but at the end of the day, it doesn't fit into the Bryce because the Bryce says you cannot flip Aramaic to Lashon Kodesh and Lashon Kodesh to Aramaic. There is no Aramaic in a mezuzah, so it can't be that's the Bryce. Eloi kasha can be Megillah, can be Svarim. Yeah, you know what the Gemara is going to say? We know there's some Aramaic in Megillah, so now it makes more sense. Svarim, you could write in any language you want. It's a big chiddush. Think about it. Sefer Torah, the holiest of the holy, write it in English according to the Mishnah. Megillah, which is a Derabanan, don't write it only in Hebrew, in Lashon Kodesh. When I say Hebrew, I mean Lashon Kodesh. Don't hold me on that word, Hebrew. People get upset. It's not Hebrew. Megillah, my time of the Sibba. Some say it's from another, but the point is, it says in the pasuk, Kichsavam, as is. Don't change it. Now the Gemara says, my targum ikka, my targum shechsave mikra ikka. What targum is there that we're talking about in the Megillah that you could flip it? Now, you cannot go Maseches Megillah without this joke, even though most of the people know the joke. We got to say the joke. Why is it that in the Megillah there are two psukim that we lane in the two nevecha? And the answer is because to give a little simcha to the litvaks. Now the question is, if that's the case, then the entire Megillah should be read like Eicha. So that's already hisoilos. That's already too much enjoyment, too much hefkeris and litzanas on Purim. Even on Purim, we're not asking to do that for the litvaks. Okay, but anyway, there's two psukim in the Megillah. Omer Apapa v'nishma pisgam hamela. Pisgam is in Aramaic. It means a decree. Fine. That he flipped over into Lashon Kodesh. And that would be possible. If you try to translate the word pisgam into Lashon Kodesh, it would be possible. Rav Nachman Yisrael Amar v'chol hanoshim yitnu yikar lebalein. They should give honor. You write in the pasuk yitnu kavod lebalein. Somebody said a pshat. I hope the women are not listening. That women need to understand what it is. So they said it in Aramaic because that's the spoken language. So they stuck it in. Women give honor in English, honor to us. So there shouldn't be any shilas. Rav Ashi Omar, Kitanya Ahi B'Shar Svarim. Another pshat. The Brisa is talking about Shar Svarim. There's the Sefer Torah, there's Nevi'im Miksuvim. Nevi'im Miksuvim is different. That you should not write in any language. Verbi Yudahi, the Sanya, Tefillin Mezuzos, Ein Nechtavim, Rabbi Yehuda explains Rav Shimon Gamliel, Tefillin Mezuzos, Ein Nechtavim El Ashuris. You can only write it in Lashon Kodesh in Ashuris, V'Rabbaseinu, Hitiru, Yevanis, and our Rebbe's, which is Reb Shimon Gamliel, they said you're allowed Yavanis. That's in our Mishnah. Oh, v'chsiv v'hayu. How could Reb Shimon Gamliel say you could write a tefillin mezuzah with Greek letters? It says v'hayu as is. Elaima svarim. No, you're right. Elaima svarim l'chtam b'chal lashon. V'Rebbe Seinu itiru Yavanis. We're not talking about tefillin mezuzahs. We're talking about nach or all svarim Tanach. L'chtam b'chal lashon. V'Rebbe Seinu itiru Yavanis. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says you could write them in Greek. Hitiru b'chlal Tanakama osar. What Tanakama says, other svarim not. What we said, it says you could write svarim in any language according to Tanakama. Elaema Rabbi Seinu le'tiru ela shichtavu ela Yavanis. That's amazing that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel doesn't say you're allowed to write it in Greek. He says you have to write it in Greek. V'tanya Omar Rabbi Yehuda af k'shetiru Rabbi Seinu Yavanis le'tiru ela b'sefer Torah. The only time they allowed Greek is in a Sefer Torah, but not in Yeshaya and Yecheskel and all the other Nevi'im. Why? So here goes. Umshum Maisa the Talmei HaMelech. Why can you write it in Greek? Because of Talmei HaMelech. Now, Talmei, if you're talking about Greek and Talmei, so what language did Talmei speak? The Sanya, let's just say the story a little bit, you understand my question. The Sanya, Maisa v'Talmei HaMelech shekines shivim u'shnayim skenim. He took the 70 skenim, the 71 skenim of the Sanhedrin. Hold on. He took the 71 of the Sanhedrin. He added one. Some say the one in charge of the Sanhedrin, but Sanhedrin is 71. He took 72 skenim, the smartest of the smarter clients, bro. And he put them into separate rooms. He didn't tell them why. I want you to write the Torah. Now, he wanted to see if they're going to do if they're going to agree 72 times. Now, in what language did he want them to do it in? Because they wrote it in Greek. What language did he speak and understand? Greek. Rashi says he was the king of Egypt. So I said as a joke yesterday, maybe he's a Greek king of Egypt. I don't know, guys, incredible. But then I looked it up. It says that he was a Greek king of Egypt, according to history. Now, very interesting. I don't know if I'm allowed to show this. I don't know. I hope this is mutter. There's something called Septuagint. Septuagint. Thank you. Septuagint. Now, if you look closely, it says LXX, which is 70. This is Greek translation of the Torah, and Adayim Hazeh, the Christians, they use this as, it says over there, the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese, it explains the whole thing that it's called 70 because of the 70 skenim. They round it up to the nearest thing. So it's called Septuagint. Okay, stop. Based on this Gemara. Because Elikim bara beresh. So I did this. I don't know if you can zoom in on this, Gary. There are 15 changes in the difference between our Torah, the Torah, and how they translated it. Now, I don't know if we should go through all through them, but basically instead of bara, bereshis bara, it's Elikim bara. It starts off the first word. Why? Because it shouldn't sound that this being called Bereshis created Hashem. Nasa Adam, let us, in plural, doesn't sound good. Es Adam. It seems like Akash Baruch Hu was still creating the world on the 7th. They switched it to Yom HaShishi. The Naces, they didn't hear each other, they didn't know about each other, and they all made the same changes in the Torah so that he doesn't get upset with the Yidden and the Torah. Zachar Nekeva Bra'am, that there was two creations, two human beings were born on the first day. No, Bra'ai, and then he separated them. Hava Nerda, let's go down and see what's going on in the world. Not us, Erda, I am going to go down, be myself. Vatitzrak Sar Bekirba, so they were upset, the guy were upset that Sarah got punished, and Avraham, who also laughed, didn't get punished, so they changed it, Bikrei Veha. She laughed to her relatives instead of laughing to herself. Avraham laughed himself. What's the truth? We'll see in the Gemara. We won't see in the Gemara, but the truth is that Avraham laughed out of simcha, Sarah laughed out of skepticism. Thank you. Ki ba'apam hargu ish, Yaakov Avinu, just last parasha, Shimon and Levi, they killed man. So the murderers, even the father said the murderers, no, they killed the Knox. They weren't murderers. Vayikim al-chamar, so Moshe Rabbeinu gave him a donkey, that's this week's parasha. No, it's not that he had only a donkey, he had Noise B'nei Adam. It's something, a vehicle that carries human beings. He had even camels, whatever, more, better stuff. Then, B'Mitzrayim, 430 Shana, I just wrote 430. The Cheshbon is off. We know that it starts from Bris Ben Absarim. Klal Yisrael is only Mitzrayim 210. So they said, Bishara Rotzos. Not only Mitzrayim was this Gullus, but in all the lands, and together it adds up to 400 or 430. Nare, that the Klal Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu sent the youngsters to do Korbanos. It's not nice for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Har Sinai, youngsters, Zatute, Choshev people. The same thing with Atzilei, we're going to switch it to Choshev. Now, this is just the whole sugya. We're going for how much? 5 minutes left. Okay, you know what? Let's just go weiter. Zog the Gemara. Because Elokim bara Bereshis instead of Bereshis bara. So we have Esa Adam. No Hashem finished by Yom Shvi, but they wrote Shishi. Zachar gave Bra, it says Bra'am in plural, they changed it to singular. Let me go down by Dar Aflaga. No, not we will go down. They switched it to I'll go down. She left to her relatives instead of Bikirba inside her because they would be upset. Why is Hashem playing favoritism? I have an avos here. If you want to know what an avos is, there's a trow here. Here's a shar. Trough, did I say trow? Yeah. He is eating money. That's what they eat, no? Fine. This is something else. Arneva soon. Yeah. Instead of a chamar, this is in our parasha. They switched it to in all the lands so that they don't have to go through the whole cheshbon. You can look in Rashi what the cheshbon is. Vayishlav is that today Bnei Yisrael, instead of Nare Bnei Yisrael, Zatudei. Beautiful Ramban here, and this is to Zevi and to all the young guys. The Ramban says, in fact, the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu sent Narim, because the unmarried Bacharim of Klal Yisrael are the most chashiv that we have. And that's what he sent. Vel Zatudei Bnei Yisrael Yishalach Yadai. So again, instead of Atzilei, they had to be consistent, so they changed it to Zatudei, which is chashiv. We just turned to Amud Beis, sponsored by Aaron Stroock. In honor of my parents, Josh Naomi Stroock, and Lezech and Ishmael Aaron ben Shimon Hakohen. Sponsored in honor of Rabbi and Mrs. Avraham Yaakov and Sarah Levine by their children. Yishkoyach. Lo chemed echol mehem nosasi. Do I have it? Yeah, it's the next one. Yeah. It says Lo chamar, so they changed it to chemed. Because it seems like Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, I didn't take a donkey, mashma, but I took gold, I took silver. No, I didn't take anything. So it says they stuck in the word lahayir. That shouldn't sound like the goyim have the right to do avodah zara. No, that's this. Yeah. Instead of saying arneves, a hare, a rabbit, they changed it to tziras hariglayim. Why? Because it's arneves. The wife of the king, her name was Arneves. And they're trying to laugh at me because it seemed like there was sakanas lefashos if you wrote the wrong thing over there. I just thought it's interesting. Rashi says tziras, meaning that they have very short hands. And if you look closely over here, you'll see that this is considerably shorter than this long leg. You see, this part alone is the size of his hand, and it goes all the way up here. This neves is different than all animals. A horse, let's say, has his hind legs and his front are the same size, basically. Not by our neves. Huh?
Kangaroo is similar to that.
Kangaroo, right. Yeah, they actually look very similar. If you
When they can announce that everyone's committed to the 10,000, they should all know they have to pay it.
Yeah, they know, right? Everybody knows that the 10,000 is in effect. It's actually 11,000 Baruch Hashem, and Nachman already paid up. So whoever committed. Now you just told me in a secret that if everybody doesn't pay, I have to give him back his money. So now it's a new tonight. You didn't hear. That you're allowed to write Sefer Torah in Greek. But they say the Bisman Hazeh, it's a different Greek, so you cannot use Greek. What? My time there So they actually bring a puzzle. Devora sheyefes, which later on is Greek, you can bring into the base medrash. But he had other children. He had Goymer, Magog, maybe that language. The beautiful language, the Greek, the Latin, whatever you want to call it, that's the one you bring in to the base medrash. Says the Mishnah. Latzlacha Ruchni, Shimshon David Liba ben Yudas Bela, Yosef Yudah ben Yudas Bela. Ein bein, let's go weiter. We'll talk afterwards. Ein bein kohen meshuach b'shemen hamishcha l'meruba begadim. Now, in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, there was oil. They used to anoint a kohen gadol, and that was it. Kohen gadol looks like this. Now, if you don't have the Shem Mishcha, because Yosha, when he buried everything, he buried the staff of Aaron, and he buried other stuff. He buried also the Shem Mishcha. So what do you do later on in the Bayis Sheni? When he wears these clothing, that makes him a kohen hameshuach. He makes him a kohen gadol. The only difference between the two is elapar haba akol mitzvahs. If a kohen gadol says a halacha that if you are over on that halacha you chayav krisos kares, and he made up this halacha, he has to bring a bull. If later generation there was no oil, you don't bring a bull. You bring a kizba sira. Ein ben kohen mishamesh l'kohen she'avar elo par yom kippurim v'asir seifa. Kohen she'avar, Rashi explains, means the substitute kohen. So let's say the kohen gadol has a problem. He's sick. He's tamei, whatever it is. You bring the next guy in. You bring this guy in. He becomes the kohen gadol. Once the original kohen gadol comes back, you kick the substitute out. Now he's no longer a substitute. Now he actually wore the shmoyne begadim. He's the real deal. I remember Avad Yosef in America, when he wasn't the Rav Rashi, he came with the Shmoyne Begadim. Once he's the Rav Rashi, you always wear that thing. So, what is the difference between them? Ela par Yom Kippurim, on Yom Kippur, only the one being Mishamish in the Beis Hamikdash, she brings a bull for his kapara. V'asir Seifa, Kohen Gadol brings Asir Seifa, a large Minchas Chavitin it's called. You give half in the morning, half in the evening. But not the guy that's retired. But for Par Yom Kippurim, Basir Seifa, Zev is a Shavin. In other words, the Kohen Meshuach and the Kohen that was anointed, and the Kohen, we're not talking about the substitute now, the first part of the Mishnah, the Merum of Gadim, they both have to do a Par Yom Kippurim and a Asir Seifa. They have to bring on Yom Kippur the bull, not when he does an Aver, but for Yom Kippur. Must isn't like your mayor, but that doesn't go according to your mayor. The Remeir, Atanya, Merubim Gadim, maybe Paraba, Akala Mitzvahs. The Remeir. So Merubim Gadim, a guy that became a Kohen Gadol because he wore the beggar, not because he had oil, doesn't bring a par, brings a Akala Mitzvahs. The Remeir, maybe. My time, the Remeir. The Sanyam Moshiach. We could sing the song a different time. Ein liela Moshuach b'shemen hamishcha meruba begadim minayin. It says over here Hamashiach. Tamaloimer Hamashiach. So the problem is that. So the beginning of the mission doesn't go like Remeir, but the end does go like Remeir, and that's a big problem always. The last part of the mission says that the substitute has the same halacha as a regular kohen gadol besides two things, and that goes asan Remeir. So the beginning of the Mishnah is not Remeir, the end is Remeir. Problem. The first kohen had to step down for a few minutes. Rishon Chayzel Avedasai, the first one comes back. Sheni, Kol Mitzvahs Kunik Doila Olav. Says Rashi, what does it mean, Kol Mitzvahs? He has to do the Avodah with Shmoyne Begadim. He doesn't uncover his hair, he doesn't rip his clothing, he could only marry a psula, he cannot marry an almana, and when his parents die, he could perform the Avodah, just like a Kohen Gadol. The Remeir. So the end of the mission is Remeir, the beginning is not Remeir. Rabbi Yossi Omer Rishon Chayzel Avedasai, Sheni and Urayu. And Rabbi Yossi says no. The second guy, the substitute, he can't be either. The same. This story happened. There's a substitute. The substitute, he cannot be a kohen gadol and he can't be a regular kohen. Why? Kohen gadol shemeva. You don't want two people fighting. There's only one gadol. Can't put a second guy next to him. But you can't make him a regular kohen. So it seems like over here that midaraisa is a kohen gadol. Just Chacham said we don't want to fight. Put him to the side. Ask the Gemara the question: Reish Rabbana of a Sefer and Meir. How can it be? Omer Rav Chizda in. Yes, we don't have a choice today. Reish Rabbana of a Sefer and Meir. Rav Yosef Amar Rebbe. Who wrote all the Mishnayos? Rebbe. Rebbe, when he wrote the Mishnah, he held not like Remeir when he wrote the beginning, and he held like Remeir when he wrote the end. It's another kind of chak on the teretz. We don't usually use that teretz. We have a better one. Have a wonderful day.